if you're having doubt in your self-trust, does that actually mean that being trusted helps you in that to feel your best? Because if you're having self-doubt, then how do you get out of that self-doubt? And how do other people help you with that?
I think friends and family members can help, but ultimately it comes down to me. Yeah, like people can give you words of affirmation, people can tell you different things, but at the end of the day, it's back to me.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
If I am really crapping on myself, I'm also crapping on the person that you love.
You are.
And that's not fair to you either. Like, because you don't like it if somebody comes to you and says, hey, Sarah, I think Matthew is all these terrible things. You'd be like, get out of my life. Like, you know, so
why are you saying
why
that
should
to
I
yourself?
do that? Exactly. Welcome back to part 2 of this week's episode of the Interracial Couple Podcast.
I've had this practice for so many years. When I wake up in the morning and I look in the mirror and what I see is this beautiful, gorgeous woman, you know, so to me, those mornings are part of the reasons why I feel loved. But the love is not coming from you. It's not coming from anyone else. The love first comes from me. Like, I don't even know how it started, but I would just look in the mirror in the morning when I haven't brushed my teeth, I haven't washed my face, and I look at myself and I'm like, wow, you are beautiful.
Yeah, you're right on that one.
And so it doesn't actually matter what other people say, whether I am beautiful or not. It's like, I know inside of myself that I'm beautiful, but I've been affirming that to myself for a very long time.
I love that you do that. I think it's just, I want to accentuate that because I think for a lot of people, that's really hard. Men and women alike, there's so much pressure to look a certain way, to be a certain way. There's so much that can be criticized or critiqued about ourselves. Or about others. You know, we definitely get plenty of practice criticizing others, or, you know, we either criticize others really well, so therefore we become really good at doing it to ourselves, or we're really good at doing it to ourselves so that we're really well practiced when we see somebody else whose nose isn't perfect, whose eyebrows aren't perfect, whose body's not perfect, whose attitude's not perfect, whose bank account's not perfect, whose car's not perfect, whose house is not perfect, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
You know, I could always be better, you know, I'm not good enough. And I think I could be better and I'm not good enough are two different things. But I just want to bring that up because even when I hear that, like I also wonder, are there people listening to being like, oh, like she's so full of herself.
I don't care what you think.
I know, but that's great. But I want to just, I'm bringing attention to that because like it's so easy for us to do that, to be like, you know, to somehow now turn that around. And I just think it's really important because what you do when you look in the mirror in the morning, you're not doing this, and I've seen you. You don't look in the mirror and like, I'm beautiful, I'm beautiful, I'm beautiful, as though you're trying to convince yourself of a lie that you don't really believe. But you actually look at yourself and you say that. And if I can just praise you again on this, which is that I never considered myself particularly good looking. But you consider me good looking.
Yeah. And
you said so regularly in such a way that I actually do that too. Like I used to look in the mirror and like every once in a while I'm like, hey, you know, I look pretty good or whatever, you know, but in general, I wasn't very self-flattering for myself.
So if you think that about yourself, why would you think others would think differently?
Totally good point. Yeah.
You know, like I'm with you, I'm your partner, I love you, I think you're good looking, I'm sitting right next to you. But also like, yeah, it needs to come from you too. Mm-hmm. I can say it.
I feel like I'm a way better looking person now than I used to be.
What changed?
What changed? I think a lot of it was also just myself in being able to say, you know what? I like the way I look. It used to be where I could be like, I like the way I look, except, you know, my nose is a little bit pointy and a little bit crooked. Or before I just decided to shave all my hair off, I'm like, not bad looking, except my nose is a little like pointy and crooked, and my posture isn't very good, and my hair is thinning, and, you know, and the list could go on and on and on. And my nose is still a little pointy and still a little crooked. That hasn't changed. And in fact, my hair is so thin that I just don't even bother anymore, right? But what's changed is also I can look at myself and I'm not sitting there being like, I'm going to look for the parts that aren't perfect, because you can always find that.
Oh, yeah, you can. And the reason I do this, and I don't know how I started this practice, it's amazing when you do it in the morning when you just wake up, because you actually are seeing yourself with, like, sometimes you have like boogers on your eyes, you know, and you have no makeup, you haven't faced the day, so you're still in that beta, you know, like kind of like almost like unconscious a little bit. So you, like, the world hasn't hit you with all the things you should do and should not do, you know.
Yeah.
But I'm really happy that you've turned a corner, and when you look at yourself, you're like,
I'm like, nice, that's cool. And it's and I just think I like that, you know. And it's not that, once again, do I look different? I think I do. I think I look a lot better than I used to. But where does that come from? I'm literally the same person who works out a little bit more than I used to. But that's basically it, you know. But the way I hold myself has changed. The way I feel about myself changed. And it's something that I learned kind of early on was the people who I was attracted to. You know, the world is full of beautiful people. And I lived in Los Angeles, which is fuller of like the beautiful people as far as the way that society says this is what beauty is, right? So, but I didn't find myself in Los Angeles. I just didn't find myself necessarily, like, in one way I should have been like, I would be attracted to so many more people.
yeah.
But I didn't necessarily find that I was attracted to more people just because there were more quote unquote attractive people. And I hate using that, but I just need to sort of clarify that in the way that we've been conditioned, or what our media has shown us is beauty, there's a lot of that in Los Angeles. And so, but the people that I've always really been attracted to are people who I like really like, you know?
Yeah.
So I've experienced so often where I look at someone, I'm like, that person is really attractive. And then I might spend a little bit of time with them or something. And then at some point, like, I just stop finding them attractive. Conversely, there's also some people that doesn't have that sort of immediate catch your eye beauty. And then spending some time with them and being like, oh my God, this person is so attractive. And I'll even say that about you. Like, we knew each other peripherally for quite a while before we met. And you're obviously a beautiful person, but beautiful people are a dime a dozen in Los Angeles. You were not, your physical beauty was not what sets you apart in a place like LA.
No.
What sets you apart is who you are. And to me, like, every day I get to know you, you become more beautiful to me. I like the person you are. I really do. And that makes you more attractive to me. It also helps that you also like yourself.
I do. And that is
right? But also, if you didn't like yourself, if you were, I mean, one of the things too, like, and I said this to my best friend a while ago, who was going through a bit of a challenge. And I was like, you know, when you wish things were different, the way I perceive that as your best friend is that you wish you were different, but I don't want you to be a different person. Like, I love you
for who you are.
So yeah, you got some warts, you had some shit happened to you in your past or whatever, but that's really, I love that. And I want, you know, I don't want you to be stuck in these old ways. I want you to grow and improve and find more happiness and become a better person tomorrow than you were yesterday. But I don't want you to be like, I wish these things hadn't happened, so therefore you would be different. That's not the person I love. And I feel that with you too. Like, you, like, if you were just like, I'm so ugly, I'm so blah, 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 I would be like, what are you saying about me? If you think you're ugly, you're telling me I have bad taste? Screw you. Right?
Oh, yeah.
So, and I need to just like turn that right back on myself and be like, if I'm not really like, yeah, I'm sure striving to improve and all these things, but like, if I am really crapping on myself, I'm also crapping on the person that you love.
You are.
And that's not fair to you either. Like, because you don't like it if somebody comes to you and says, hey, Sarah, I think Matthew is all these terrible things. You'd be like, get out of my life. Like, so
Why are you saying
why
that
should
to
I do
yourself?
that? Exactly.
Yeah, so I guess in like circling back into like, when do you feel loved? Then I would say like you actually feel loved when you love yourself. Yeah. That's where it starts. Like, otherwise you just can't feel loved. Like it just is that you feel, and then when other people do love you, then you actually even feel, I don't know if you can say more loved, but you are more accepted. Like you're ready to receive the love. Otherwise you can't.
Right. Because it's almost like now I can trust you, right? If I love myself, that means I can trust that you also I can trust that you actually do love me and you're not pretending.
Yeah.
Right. And that kind of goes back to this trust. So here we are as we're coming to a close. I think there are a couple of things that have really shown for me in our episode today, which is really just feeling loved is, being willing to articulate what that means to me so I can, so that I can also ask for it, so that I can ask for my needs to be met without any demands or without any stank or without any anger. And then also trusting that when I love myself, that means I can also trust you and your taste. Those are the things that have come to me here.
Yeah, I love this episode. It's just like, and also is like, I have to remind myself, like what other people, like, yeah, there's something like I kind of, what other people think of me is none of my business. And to like keep affirming myself, and not worry about what other people really think,
Yeah. Or just like kind of briefly this morning, we had a tiny little argument. And I was like, you know what? Like you were upset, but you actually had something that you could share with me that I really wanted to learn and hear about. Like you shared something. Like if you can bring that same thing you just said, but in a way that's like, Matthew, I want you to notice what I noticed so that way you can improve on this instead of, why are you blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Right? Then it's like, So I had to go through and filter out kind of the attitude in your voice in order to get this thing that I'm really grateful that I got because you taught me something this morning. But you also put the burden on me to filter out your attitude to get to it.
I did apologize about my attitude.
And here we are. So yes, and ended up it's really beautiful. It's really beautiful. So I feel best and loved.
So in that moment, what you're trying to say is that you did not feel loved?
No, I think ultimately at the end of the day, I was loved.
Okay.
And I didn't really feel loved because I felt criticized. But underneath that, once we kind of got through, it was actually, I was loved because you also trusted me enough to say, hey, I noticed something about you that I think you could improve upon.
Got it.
All right. So there we go. And there we have it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us on this week's episode of the Interracial Couple Podcast. And we'll see you next week.
We'll see you next week.